sense, it's a kind of exploring a field in a way which is creating a dynamic, which to me is quite fascinating. The dynamic between the musicians and the dancer. Okay, that dynamic created is kind of a exploration as well. Explore our potential, explore the expression in many ways. So this is very interesting. Nurturing disposition of exploration and the love of truth. I mean, it cannot be more important than that aspect. I have to add another dimension when we say free exploration. Yesterday I talked to someone, maybe this morning. I said aesthetic education. I remember Sumita was the person I talked to. Is that the aesthetic intelligence or aesthetic aspect of our life is very important. Free exploration allow us to appreciate the beauty of the universe, of the world. In that regard, art education probably is fundamental. Not just to know a little bit about dance, not just know about a little bit about music, but music and dance and visual art is about the universe. It's about human nature. So anyone, even though we emphasizing STEM and everything, it's very important for a country, but fundamentally STEM sometimes also takes aesthetic appreciation of the universe to create in many ways. So this is a free exploration aspect. Specific consideration is curriculum. We have to think about if this is our goal, the disposition to be creative, are we always looking at the content coverage or the acquisition, or we develop habits of mind? Social school culture, independent critical thinking and imagination encouraged or inhibited? I don't want to go too much. Now, for India and for China, maybe for Japan, we have Manabu is here. I mean, Japan probably, you can also think about relevance. We are living in a culture relatively has a long history of what? Basically respectable authority and obedience, conformity. These are very, very much valued in the culture. So in that sense, we have a more teacher-student power differential. Does that make sense? We have more teacher-student power differential means that we dare not to speak out if we have a different view about a matter, that the teacher may say something that we disagree. We tend not to argue with teacher. Probably to some extent, U.S. American students will also not dare to do that. But in general, the power differential tend to inhibit differences. Does that make sense? So that is one aspect we have to think about as a teachers, how we conduct our classroom in a way that is conducive to free exploration. Social expectation, achievement through conformity versus achievement through independence, or something like that. I cannot help but talking about Three Idiots. Probably many of you more familiar with Three Idiots, watched this movie earlier than I did. I watched this. It's a hilarious movie. But there was a point, right? Does that make sense? So it means the Indian culture probably in some way is like a Chinese culture, probably achievement through conformity. Is that my parents said that I should do this to become an engineer, become a doctor, that's something that I have to do. It's a given, period. So is that something that we should think about? Curriculum of a personal construction, am I running out of time? I'm okay? I'm okay, right? Okay. A curriculum of personal construction. Psychological background, I mentioned Piaget, I mentioned Feldman, and Bruner. I'm going to give you a quote about Bruner. Now, when we talk about culture and individuals, we have to think about, in the culture, if a culture is very homogeneous, in the sense of values, thinking, ideas, theories, very homogeneous, whether this will be very creative or the society is quite heterogeneous with different kind of values, different kind of viewpoints, different kind of a collision of ideas, collision of different ideas, which way will be more creative? You can think of for yourself. Bruno said, no person is the master of the whole culture. Each man lives a fragment of it. To be whole, he must create his own version of the world, and using part of the cultural heritage he has made his own through education. So Bruner's, this quote to me is a revelation, because what is the relationship between culture and individual, right? Sometimes we think that creativity is always about individual. No, creativity is also about culture. There was a large part of it in enculturation. To some extent that we are actually assimilate and learn a lot from what the culture has to offer. In that way, we transform what culture gives us to something that is uniquely personal, uniquely mine. That's called creativity. That's how I understand creativity. So Jerome Bruner, in that sense, kind of give us a more balanced view of what is the role of culture and individual. What is common about two Steves? I give you two Steves. One is Steve Jobs, you know, right? Steve Jobs. The other one is Steve Chu. You may not be that as familiar. Steve Chu was the former energy minister before being the energy minister of the United States. Is that energy minister? Yeah, it is, right? Department secretary, there's department head. And then before that, he was a Stanford professor in physics, and he was a Nobel laureate as well. Okay, Steve Chu. So these two people, when I look at their biographies, when I study their biographies, I find commonalities. One is interest and self-direction. They are very self-directed. The other one is autodidactic and self-study. Autodidact means a lot of things they teach themselves. Okay, they teach themselves how to do it. Interested in deep principles and truths, dislike rote learning. The teacher, you have to get it done. Okay, tomorrow you have to turn it in. All right? No, that's not sufficient reason. Tell me why I really have to do it. And if there was something coming out of themselves, that is probably more powerful for them. Doing schoolwork simply because they are asked to do. So, open atmosphere and a wide range of learning opportunities in school. So that why I mentioned that is a lot of time we teachers think that we have to teach them everything. Okay, we have to lead their hands all the way, every step of the way. A lot of times, gifted and talented students probably don't need us to do that. Okay, we kind of worry too much about that aspect. Instead, we should worry about how we can provide the kind of environment that allows them to explore. Of course, doesn't mean that we don't have to offer mentorship, but it does mean that a lot of times we probably shouldn't worry too much, over-worried. Some of the teachers I work with in China worry a lot. Oh, what if they cannot handle this? What if they cannot? They have habits of what? Taking their hand, leading them all the way. They feel safe. Otherwise, they feel insecure. Okay, they feel insecure. We probably should not do that. Rich resources and a stimulating environment. For example, I find one is from New York City, Steve Chu. He grew up in New York City area, and one is grew up in Silicon Valley. It's not accident that Steve Jobs was born and grew up, not born, but grew up in Silicon Valley. He went to, when he was like a 13-year-old boy, he went to Hewlett-Packard's Friday Engineer Club. Every Friday, he went there to listen to the engineers talk about the future of computer and everything. So that was in 60s, even earlier, okay? So we haven't even heard about computer. Sorry, yeah. Ran out of time, right? Okay, so I'm gonna finish this.
Okay, there is a question for you. Maybe
Yeah,
you can
okay.
take the question.
Yeah, okay. Okay, that's a good question about intelligence and creativity. Um, Now, first of all, I have to qualify this, putting this two construct in a context. When we talk about creativity, relationship, or correlation between intelligence and creativity, a lot of times we imply psychometrically it is normally distributed. Individuals differ about on intelligence, individuals differ in creativity. Only in that sense, we might think about their correlation may be high, maybe medium, maybe low. And I probably, if you ask me about this, I would probably say, first of all, just like Raina earlier talked about, maybe it depends on the field. Maybe it takes certain intelligence in certain areas to be creative, let's say in a career. Maybe in other areas it takes less. But if you ask Joseph Renzulli, for example, Joseph Renzulli might say that above average is good enough in general. But to me, I would think that probably it really depends on domain. It really depends on domain. I personally also feel that the general intelligence exists in a sense that what general intelligence measure is basically a mixed bag of a variety of things that actually summarize your overall mental power in certain way. But in other way, I also feel that we mystify this construct of a general intelligence as if it's completely fixed. It is not fixed. Okay, part of it is genetic. We can agree that a lot of research shows, but part of it is also environmental. Okay, so it's a mixed bag of nature and nurture rather than we are born with a particular IQ. Okay, so but putting away the psychometric definition of those terms or constructs, I have to say that the intelligence probably when we say a person is intelligent, we should think about probably intelligence also implies that person is creative in one sense. For example, Richard Snow once mentioned, intelligence probably involves some playfulness. Does that make sense? It makes sense to me. A person is intelligent in one way, that is, this person is playful about looking at things and things like that. So playfulness probably is part of it. So playfulness has direct link to creativity. So this is how I will address this. Because I didn't finish the whole thing, what I would like to do is that if any of you interested, I can send you the slides, or I can post it somewhere. Maybe the organization committee can put it somewhere that you can download. How about that? That will be sufficient for you. Okay, sorry about it.